Hey guys, welcome back to Choosing Recovery. I'm Olivia.
I'm Scotty.
And today we are starting our family series.
About time.
Super exciting. It's going to be able to help a lot of people, so let's just go ahead and jump into this. It's from Heather, and we also have more information down in our link below, so go ahead and check that out. And we will also be having her back on to share her video about what she is doing to impact families that are struggling with addiction.
Yes.
So here's her story.
Zoom.
What was your first reaction and thoughts when you found out a loved one was in active addiction?
I think you go through almost like your grieving stages. Sorry.
You're okay.
It's that initial denial, not my kid, that it's got to be somebody else, and you're transferring the blame, and I think you're grasping at all straws until it finally just hits you that, oh my gosh, this is actually going on in my home.
Yeah.
So, how did your loved one's addiction affect you?
Oh my, I think it, in every aspect, it affected relationships, not just within the family, but I'm a single mom, so it affected any relationships with my friends and, dating. It affected me financially. A lot of time went into purchasing things when they were incarcerated or when they were in, different facilities. And not only that, but, my oldest stealing from me constantly. So drained bank accounts. And I think my mental health was a big one because I felt like, first off, I wasn't a good enough mom. I had failed my kids. And then when you're shut off from your peers, from having that outlet to talk, it made me feel like it was such a taboo, bad thing. And again, reiterating that I was a bad mom. And then it did. It made me doubt my self-worth, my self-confidence. And so it was a vicious roller coaster ride, to say the least.
Absolutely, and I think that's what's so important is to have people understand that there is nothing that, the addict chooses to use, right? And the shame and guilt that the family carries is so excruciating, and, it affected my mom's health, too. She ended up getting, different things were affecting her, not just, mentally. Her physical well-being was starting to drain, and she was constantly worried and up at night, and it's so important to realize that, there is help. There is help for you guys, and at some point you do get addicted to the addict.
Yep.
So.
Very, very true.
Okay. What were the first signs that you noticed?
This started when my oldest was about 14. So, I noticed the friend change. The change in dress, and his attitude, was, part of me chalked it up to, you're a teenage boy, you're trying to find yourself, you're trying to fit in with a group, but then, looking back, it was probably on the opposite end of the normal spectrum for, the moodiness and identity searching that goes on in those years. So I think those were some of the first ones that I noticed.
So it's as generations go along, you just see how many things are changing. Now that I see people that were my age when I first started using, it's unreal to me, what kids are doing nowadays. And I thought what I did when I was a child, younger, was crazy, and just some of the stories you hear. But absolutely, the appearance, the attitude, the way even you wear your clothes, those are definitely huge hints. And you said 14 was around when it started. We do a lot of research, especially with the age on our other videos. And the timeline from when people first start to use or experiment is between 11 and 13 years old, around that area. And you would think that with all that knowledge being done on it, even though it's a 25-year study, is that there would be more education in schools on these things.
Prevention against that.
Well, and I think when, excuse me,
it's okay.
that just say no mentality, drugs are bad, Sometimes it almost put a challenge in people's face.
Absolutely.
Going, oh, hey, tell me no, watch me, I'll do it. Love it.
He's a pterodactyl, I swear to God.
He's figured out how to scream.
Aw.
But it is, like, they had the DARE program when I was in school, and they would give me those drunk goggles, and I would, like, all right, challenge accepted. And I'm like this is awesome. Like, that is not, like, what that effect should have. And doesn't mean, like, that had the same effect on everybody, but it definitely had that kind of effect in my eyes. You know,
Right,
it's like,
and
I like
think
this.
once kids start recognizing that those high-risk behaviors are going to help them either fit in or not fit in, and it kind of helps them kind of weave their way to where they feel the most accepted by presenting things like DARE, going, hey, you know, this is what it's like. It's kind of, again, that, oh, well, there's another challenge for me to try.
Yep. What they need to do is just show how bad it really gets out there. Throw documentaries in their face of, like, real life. You know what I mean? Like,
Of what goes on.
Exactly.
And that's
there's 10-year-olds out there that are shooting heroin now and dying. It's not.
Right. I know, like, with our group, we deal with everyone from, 10, 11 has been our youngest attendee up until, 80-year-old. And one of the things that some of our teens try to promote with their friends is that message of you are more. Not allowing those negative situations or grades or that negative self-talk take over.
Oh.
And to help see yourself as more than just that situation or circumstance.
Those things, absolutely, and that's very important. Knowing what you know now, would you have gone back and changed anything?
Hindsight is that 2020. I think we all would. And that was one thing that I beat myself up over a lot. I should have done this. I should have done that. But then I realized that I did the best that I could with what I knew and what I had available to me. At that time, when my son started experimenting, was when his dad was in active addiction, and he was on meth and in and out. Wanting to have that relationship with his dad and that side of the family, and again led to that experimenting, trying to fit in. I think I did everything in my power to try to keep him protected and safe and loved, and at that time I think I did what I thought was best. I would have changed a lot of things. I would have been more strict. I probably would have been more alert, and recognizing that some things, not that we had a cushy life by any means, but my kids didn't want for a lot. I probably would have taken more time to, have more open conversations with them about this versus using, leading on the school to do some of those talks. Not that we didn't. I mean, we did, but I think it would have been just more. I've got a 15-year-old, and the way I parent her is way more different than I parented my older two.
And that's the thing, like, we can do, like, often when we go through that life, like, even we find ourselves, we do the best we can do in that situation at that given time. And you, with your 15-year-old now, you learn and grew from that, and now you're able to give her those things that, that you learned, because it's a learning process. And I think that it's so important. Like, that's why we started the YouTube channel too, is the internet is such a dangerous place right now for the younger generation. Like, we got on TikTok, right, and I'm watching these young women and men get impacted by the older generation, and watching them, like, is so different from when we were kids. And that's why we want to be that positive side, but also share and show, like, it's not fun. Like, it's fun until it's not anymore, and then your life is, like, on the line. And a lot of people don't know that. Like, I never knew that. I didn't even know until I was, like, halfway through, and I was like, wait, I can die? Like, I was so confused,
And, like, I can only imagine how hard it is to ask some of these questions and to answer some of these questions. And we're doing it because it's so important for the loved ones out there to know that it's okay to have those feelings early on. But you got to remember, it wasn't your fault. It wasn't. we're always going to feel like we could have done more. And I think that's really the generalized answer that we would like to hear, like you just gave us. Like, of course we wanted to change something and do something different. But it's the fact that you did what you could. It's our decision.
And that's what's important.
It was our decision to go out and do what we did.
And I think that was the biggest hurdle I faced as a mom was, I've taught you right from wrong. I've raised you this way. But then I also started realizing at that, 13, 14-year-old age, you're finding yourself. You're starting to make your own choices. And, at the end of the day, my oldest two's choice weren't reflective of who I was as a mom.
Oh, bingo.
But more reflective of where their mental health struggles were.
Yeah.
Absolutely. We're huge with the mental health and addiction.
100%.
Everything ties together.
And my mom still today, even though I'm 2.5 years clean, says, I wish I would have did this. I wish I would have done that. She still blames a lot of my addiction on her decisions. And it tears me apart inside because because I know everything that I did was by my own choice, by my own will. And all the blame that I used to put on my family during that time, that's where those feelings come from a lot with family members.
Well, and it's not just the family member that's actively using, it's your parents' friends as well.
Yeah.
Because many times, I would be talking to my supposed friends and they'd be like, show them tough love, cut them off. And I'm like, but they're sick.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
My mom was the same way. People are like, why do you call your daughter every day? My mom would call me every day. And she was like, I have a 16-hour rule. If I don't hear from you, I'll just start calling police stations, hospitals, whatever. And she was like, because I'm going to talk to my daughter. Like, she's still there, even though she's not, So that was important to her.
For me, I wanted them to know that whether you're out there actively using, you're in jail, you're, in treatment, whatever, I'm going to be there and love you no matter what.
I love that. It is.
I don't want you to be conditional in my life.
Oh.
I don't, because of my 15-year-old now, there was times where they weren't allowed to stay here.
Yeah.
And it was simply because I couldn't expose her to that. But at the same time, there were daily messages of, I love you. I hope you're doing well. I hope you're safe. Do you want to go get a bite to eat? Do you need a pack of cigarettes? Those were things that I would do just to try to stay connected.
Wow.
And again, give them that safe landing spot.
Yeah.
So when that choice came, that change, and they wanted to transition into a different life,
they knew where to go.
Walk with them.
And when you're at a distance like that, it also allows you to be able to continue to work on your mental health and figure out how you're going to go by it from then on, And then that's when the greatest thing my mom ever did for me was stop enabling me. I knew she was there and I knew she loved me, but she had to cut me out of her life to a certain extent to where I had to be alone. I had to feel disconnected from everything, and everything that was happening to me, it had to be I had to feel it.
Yeah.
And I think that's where we kind of kept that separation of, if you're using, you can't be here, but if you want to be clean and come down, you're more than welcome to come here.
Always
so
love
they
them.
had that safe landing spot per se.
Yeah.
Love is powerful.
Yes, it is.
Yep.
Why do you think it's important for family members to be educated on addiction?
When I first started this, I grew up where alcoholism was prevalent. I mean, it was everywhere. Mm-hmm. And so to me, it was, why did they choose the bar over, coming to my events? Why did they choose this over that, And then it was that education piece that helped me kind of heal that wound that I had with my stepdad, because I felt when he was going through his last years, it was really hard for me to be there because I had so much hurt going on. And then once I started realizing that addiction was a disease and that I could separate that person into two different entities, and I did that with my kids. I had the individuals that I raised, and then I called it the shell, which was the addict, because it physically looked like it looks like our loved ones, but it's not, So I think if we don't understand that you're going to harbor that hurt and animosity for years longer than you
Sorry.
No, that's fine.
Okay. So, what were some healthy ways for family members to be able to cope with a loved one's addiction?
Yeah, that one has taken me a while to come to because
Yeah.
you can turn exercise into an addiction. You can turn eating right into an addiction. For us, it was finding the avenues to openly talk, to find the professionals that didn't encourage that tough love mentality, that actually listened. And to realize, I think one of the healthiest things that I probably took in was that extending God's grace, plain and simple for me. I didn't want people judging my parenting abilities. I didn't want people judging who I was as a person. So therefore, I couldn't do that to others either. And so that right there was probably the healthiest thing that I ever did for myself, to bring that healing.
Awesome. Absolutely. Do you think you were addicted to the addict, as they say, and did their addiction control you?
Every aspect, every bit of it. It was like I was going to put on that superhero cape, I was going to fly in and I was going to save the day because I knew it was right, I knew it was best, and just listen to me because I can fix this, Moms are fixers, and, it ran my life. It influeed every decision. And I even remember telling my 15-year-old just recently, I said, I think I robbed you. And she goes, what do you mean? I said, well, her dad always said that it would be safer for her to be out there with him versus going through all the chaos that we were going through in our home. And to keep her protected from, whatever hurt was going on, or just the disease of addiction as a whole. And I told her, I said, I probably should have let you go. And she goes, no, Mom. She goes, this was the best life lesson I've ever had. And if I didn't understand, I wouldn't be able to understand my own mental health, or even to help others understand themselves.
Amazing.
Absolutely.
I love that. I think it's so important because when people find recovery from anything, like you said, you find recovery from anything that you've become addicted to, the life that you can lead. You understand yourself completely. You've learned who you are. And then if there's anything that you want to change, it's great because you can. You have the ability to move past that and just find the true you. That's incredible. I love that.
Yep.
So, okay. If you could say to somebody that is still out there actively using, what would you say to them?
A lot of the times I hear, I'm a burden, I'm a bother, I'm worthless, I'm this, that, and the other. And our group created a slogan called "You Are More." You are more than any past situation. And I've got the card sitting right here. So it says, always see yourself as valuable, likable, and worthwhile. A person worth knowing and loving. You are more than any negative label, choice, situation, or comment.
You are more.
Sounds amazing.
The one thing I always told my kids too was, just because you made a poor choice doesn't mean you're going to have a poor future.
Absolutely. When I went to jail, my mom was like, good people go to jail? I'm like, yeah, you'd be surprised, right?
Been there, done that.
Right. Last question. Okay. If you could say something to a family member of a loved one that is still in active use, what would you say to the family member?
And I know I always said this to my son a lot, was that I don't know what battles you're facing in your head. I don't know the level of hurt that you are experiencing in your heart. But I know right now in my heart that the thought of not having you is unbearable. And it's not even something I would ever want to fathom. But having to face that, that's not a hurt I would ever want anyone to experience. And so if you're trying to cover up any mental health issues or any emotional hurt that you've experienced in life, once you get through that super sensitive phase in recovery, life does get better.
Absolutely. So we're just going to open the floor to you and let you share your story.
Okay. Oh, long story. And I think I was sitting back here a few months ago trying to remember dates and stuff. Man, I didn't realize how much trauma can make you forget things, you know. So I know for a fact that with my oldest two children, we've had probably just about every youth facility in our state that they've been in. A lot of the jails, both have been to prison. My son did time at Leavenworth, and my oldest daughter is still awaiting her federal sentencing. So I think we've experienced the emotional and legal side, and we've been quite fluent in that. So I think that's been helpful for us to help others, I guess, through this battle. I know the last year I watched a major roller coaster go from him coming out of Leavenworth to going to a transition facility. He was on that emotional high of, I'm back on my antidepressants, life is good, I've got a job, I can buy this stuff for myself, to a federal indictment coming down that involved him and his sister that totally just knocked him off that. He had started developing a relationship with Christ, so he was having, that faith get him through stuff. And then again, like I said, a nosedive. We watched back-to-back overdoses in July. And the second one was pretty, very traumatic to say the least, because it happened in our home. She was 14 at the time, had to call 911, and stayed amazingly calm through it. I don't even know how. I could hear the panic in her voice, but she was right there along with everyone. To another one. I mean, it was just a roller coaster, because then there was recovery again, and stronger faith to where he was water baptized last fall, to more stuff coming along to on the federal side to knock him down, to another overdose, to so it's, in reading the messages, it was, I didn't realize how dark it was for him. And I'm thankful and blessed that some of the people that he knows still contact me and tell me, hey, I'm struggling, I need this, or I stopped because of this. So it's definitely been a rough road this year. But if it wasn't for our Embrace group, there's no way that I would have kept going or even found any peace with his passing. So I think the biggest hurdle that I've had to get over was my anger towards the recovery community and the medical community for not seeing mental health as urgent as physical health. Because if he would have walked into that hospital, into a hospital or a treatment program with a physical wound that was as big as the one in his head, it would have been a lawsuit. Because I can pull up all the messages where he would say, I wish, I wish they wouldn't have revived me. I wish they would have just let me go. I think life would have been, I would have been better had I been gone. I've caused so much hurt. I don't want to see you guys hurt anymore. So I think that's been, my biggest platform, is just to make sure that people are aware that just because you don't see it doesn't mean it's not there.
Absolutely. So we would love to have you come on for maybe a short little video again whenever you have the time, no rush, and just talk more about your Embrace, and just go into detail. I'm going to tag, is there any, well, I'll email you, and I'm going to have you send maybe, like, if you guys have
a website
or
a link
anything.
to anywheres.
we'll go ahead.
Yeah.
We'll link it in this video, but I also, even if the next video is like 5 minutes and you just kind of explain or anything, I'd really like to have like an individual video for that.
Yeah, and if you're like, if you need help with like any advocacy programs or like people to talk for you guys or things like that are in recovery, we are more than 100% willing to be any part of that. We really love what you guys are doing.
Yeah.
I think it's huge.
We have one individual who's signed paperwork for a recovery house, a transition type, transitional home. And so we're kind of working on some stuff there. But I think it would be important to, we want to expand our reach and to be able to have, resources like you available for them. Hey, I'm struggling with this. I need someone to talk to. Hey, here we go.
Because
I'm partnerships going.
She's a certified life coach, and I'll be a certified recovery coach by the end of by summer.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And then we would also like to do the transitional living, even like especially like for women, because there's nothing like that out here.
No, it's so sad.
So.
See, and that's the one thing that we do have an all women's home.
Awesome.
That's awesome.
The transitional places that we've had have been tied to treatment. So if you're coming out of jail, you have nothing. If you're coming out of prison, you have nothing. And even sometimes coming out of the treatment programs, there's not enough beds. So, as far as defining specifically what it's for, I think it's more open. And then there's the recovery plan that we've kind of put together. I should email that to you too. It's more of an individualized approach, but it incorporates, our state has a program called Free Through Recovery that offers care coordination and peer support for those on probation and parole. This program is one called Community Connect and embraces a provider for both of those. So we'll be able to provide that care coordination and peer support. And in that, it will incorporate, if they're on probation or parole, their probation officer, their counselor can be involved. Awesome. But the one thing that we want to do that's different is to implement 2 or 3 family members or loved ones that can call them on their BS. Because I remember multiple headbutting sessions with my son's counselor. She's like, I know this. I got it. And I'm like, girl, you don't even know.
Yeah,
I told him, I said, you're taking him from a residential program and putting him in a transitional place, right? And she's like, yeah. I said, the dude was just out picking up H in the alley from your treatment program or your residential program.
Yeah.
So, well, no, that wasn't recent. I said, no, that was 2 days ago.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, like, we all need to work together. Like if they say raising a kid, or it takes a village to raise a kid. Okay, so that's why we think it's so important for the mental health aspect of it, because the cycle is absolutely fucking disgusting.
Yeah.
To see how it's mental health, undiagnosed, untreated mental health, to using drugs, to treatment centers, to jail, to mental health.
Yeah.
It's like everything's linked together, and it's almost a joke.
And that's
why we're trying to stand up against that.
It'd be so good to expand all that to one unit, so we wouldn't have to reach out to multiple counselors or head directors from multiple treatment places. That there's just so much happening between one transition to another that a lot of stuff just gets misplaced and lost. Don't know nothing about the person. And
that's kind of where we want to kind of take that guesswork out of it for individuals and families. Is we know the resources that are available here and throughout the state.
Yep.
And if not, we've got the connectivity to it. So if you've got an issue or a question, you know what? We're going to provide those services.
100%.
So you don't have to come. It's not a one-stop shop, but it's a one-stop connectability.
Absolutely.
And it gives them that opportunity to say, you know what, I don't like this program or I don't like that one. Okay, then let's find others.
Yeah.
Or,
Bingo! Because we always say your recovery is going to be different from everybody else's. Recovery is individualized. And if one thing doesn't work for you, it doesn't mean that you don't deserve recovery. It just means that you need to find another route.
Yeah.
And agencies and organizations need to quit being butthurt because it didn't work for that one person.
Yeah.
It's all about,
Yeah.
the big guys.
Yeah, and that's kind of where we've I've watched, and I'm not trying to talk negative about our first lady, but unless there's, it seems like a pocketbook attached, you're nothing, you know. I remember bringing up to her a couple of years ago. They had a kind of like a showcase of all the recovery services for the legislators at the Capitol, and I put together a resource book for our community. I put together resources for the families, you know, information pamphlets, and she looks at her assistant and she goes, you know what? She goes, that's one aspect we haven't looked at. And I go, what? She goes, well, we're so focused on the individual and the stigma that they face. What about the family? I said, exactly. But yeah, you want, yeah, I know. I'm like, seriously, I've been screaming this for the last how many years now? But, you know,
Goodness.
whatever. I'm glad it was your idea, lady. But no, and I'm glad that it's taken a little bit, but that with that community connect, it'll be able to provide that peer support for the families as well.
Absolutely.
So I think the goal with, if we get this house, is to create more of those inclusive meetings, because we all have to come to the table someday as a family, you know. We're going to have a teen peer support group so that they can talk through their struggles.
Awesome.
And a parents grieving group, because whether they're actively using or if they passed away, you're constantly grieving anyway.
Yeah.
I always say this, the hardest thing to do in life is grieve somebody that's still alive. And from people that have lost a loved one to addiction, they say it with love, but it was a relief.
Yeah.
You know, and that's the hard truth of it. So.
Addison had said after his overdose in January, she goes, Mom, I don't mean to sound cold, but man, I sometimes wish it would just be done.
Wow, yeah.
And then, when it happened, she's obviously, I didn't mean it, Mom. And I'm like, no, you did, and that's okay. It's okay to say those words, because we've been dragged down the gravel road way too many times. And just when you think those wounds are healing, the pickup takes off again and takes you dragging down the road again. And for me, I was thankful he had his faith. Every day he would say he was a child of God. It's that physical missing of them. I know he's in so much better place than he was here. But, again, it's back to that physical missing of him, and letting go of the hopes and dreams that you wanted. I think that's more of the grieving process you go through with this.
Yeah.
So, but like I said, I know he is not fighting the demons that I know I probably could not have fought as long as he did.
Wow.
And I'm thankful, because I know that the more, like I said, the more connections that we can provide, the more resources for everybody, the better. Right? Recovery help is not a prideful entity at all, or it shouldn't be.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm gonna get
Well,
him.
thank you so much, and have a great day.
All right, you too. Thank you.
All right, bye-bye.